The new season of Formula One is just around the corner, but before the lights go out in Bahrain, you'll see all teams hit the track in 3 rigorous pre-season testing days. It's the first chance to see how this season is shaping up. But first, let's take a quick look at how it all works. There was a time when Formula One teams could do as much testing as they liked. Then, in an effort to save costs, testing is now restricted. And this year, the teams have just 3 days to put their new cars through their paces before the first race. The circuit will be open for 8.5 hours a day, with a 1-hour lunch break. And each team is permitted to run only 1 car on track at a time. That's a total of 25.5 hours for the teams to weed out any big problems, get fixes in place, and try out new parts before the racing starts. So, what should you be keeping an eye out for when the cars hit the track on Thursday? Each team will begin the day with a run plan, which is a full breakdown of how they'll use the time available, including which different parts and setups they'll be testing, how much fuel they'll be carrying on board, and how long the car will be on track for each run. You'll also see the teams running their cars with large metal grills attached. These are called aero rakes and are airflow measuring devices, which allow the teams to build a digital picture of the flow coming off various parts of the car, such as the front wing or front wheels, all in the pursuit to be the fastest team on track. You may also see the cars go out on track with bright green fluorescent paint daubed on one side. This isn't because someone accidentally knocked over a can of paint in the garage. It's another way of understanding airflow. The paint will dry as the car goes around the track, literally showing the engineers how the air is flowing off key aerodynamic parts on the car. And watch out for sandbagging. This is where teams may deliberately run their cars below their maximum potential to disguise their true top speed and keep their rivals guessing as to their real level of performance. While some of the teams revealed their actual new cars at their launch events, others only showed off their new liveries or interim launch versions of their cars. That's because some like to use every last moment of development time before building their new machines, while others are keen to keep their designs under wraps for as long as possible. So when the pit lane opens for testing week, it will be the first chance we get to see the real cars the drivers will be racing this year. Lots of fans will be glued to the timing screens when running gets underway in Bahrain. But ultimate lap time is not generally the priority for the teams at testing. They're usually more concerned with making sure the car is working properly and running through their test program than they are about posting the quickest times. For that reason, it's not always easy to tell who's looking in good shape based on the timing sheets. But having said that, last year Max Verstappen finished up as the quickest driver at the Bahrain winter test, which, as it turned out, was a marker for the incredible season Red Bull went on to have. We'll get our first indication of whether they're still the team to beat this year when the RB19 hits the track. Last season was a tough one for Mercedes by their sky-high standards. As F1's new ground effect era dawned, they suffered more than most from the porpoising effect, which saw the car bounce violently down the straights. They also struggled for pace until they managed to extract some speed from the W13 late in the year. Nevertheless, it's the only car Lewis Hamilton has failed to win a single race with in his F1 career, and he branded it the worst he's driven for over a decade. So when the W14 gets running, we'll see if the Silver Arrows learned from the mistakes they made last year. Mercedes may have struggled last year, but their car was the talk of the paddock at the test. When the W13 thundered out of the garage, its unique zero side pod design raised eyebrows and turned heads up and down the pit lane, as it was unlike anything the other teams had produced. And back in 2020 pre-season testing, Mercedes stunned their rivals even more with their ingenious DAS steering system, which allowed the drivers to alter the alignment of the front wheels to help with tyre heating and grip by pushing and pulling on the steering wheel. And there are countless other examples of teams finding innovative ways to try to gain an advantage over their rivals. Braun's double diffuser in 2009 and McLaren's 2010 F-duct were both clever aerodynamic devices which were highly effective before they were eventually banned. Some teams even tried six-wheeled cars in the 1970s, with some success, but perhaps most famous is Brabham's fan car from 1978. It had a huge fan fitted underneath the rear wing to literally suck the car to the track and improve grip. All the teams will be keeping a close eye on their rivals to see if any of them spring any surprises. It's not only the new cars that debut this week, the drivers will also be getting back in the groove after enjoying some time off over the winter. And for the three rookies about to embark on their first F1 campaign, it will be an exciting new experience. Super sub Nick de Vries is preparing for his first full year in the sport with AlphaTauri. Williams have promoted former F2 racer Logan Sargent to drive alongside Alex Albon this season. And highly rated former F3 and F2 champion Oscar Piastri is replacing fellow Australian Daniel Ricciardo at McLaren. With testing now heavily restricted, this week will be the one and only chance for all three to get in some good mileage in their new cars before battling with the pros. While there's no pressure on them to be pumping in quick lap times, there is pressure on their young shoulders to maximise their time on track. With a full testing programme to get through and only 3 days of running, the teams can't afford to lose time recovering and repairing crashed cars. That means all the drivers, including the rookies, need to strike the right balance between pushing hard and avoiding any crashes or off-track excursions. And it's not only in the cockpit where we'll see new faces in Bahrain. While 6 teams have made changes in their driver lineup over the winter, no less than 4 have changed their team principal since the last Grand Prix back in November. Mattia Binotto left Ferrari at the end of last year and has been replaced by former Alfa Romeo boss Fred Vasseur. That left a vacancy at Alfa, with ex-McLaren team principal Andreas Seidel joining as CEO, with Alessandro Aluni Bravi moved up into the new role of team representative. McLaren have promoted from within to replace Seidel, with their former racing director Andrea Stella stepping up as the new team boss. And finally, Williams also decided to make a change, with Jost Capito leaving after 2 years, and former Mercedes strategy chief James Vowles taking up his first team principal role with the British team. Each of them will still be finding their feet in their new jobs, but they'll all be in Bahrain wearing their new team colours and hoping their reigns get off to a successful start.